Good morning, good afternoon, good night. Regardless of where you are, I'm not sure if you're watching the recording, if you're joining us live today. But this is episode 4 of Men's Mental Health with my guy RJ Barrett Cordova. We're going to be talking about a really necessary topic, an absolutely important topic. That's feeling your feelings. If you know, most men, and we're going to be jumping into what that means, what it looks like, the importance behind why we should be feeling our feelings, and really diving deep into the importance behind feeling our feelings and how that can help us in our everyday life. With that being said, though, my guy RJ is on here. Thank you for joining us, my guy. I appreciate you. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for everyone listening. Everyone jumping in. We're gonna have some people jumping in. Hopefully, we have some questions and everything going. And if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions for future episodes, make sure you drop them in the comments if you're watching the recording, or just drop them as you watch, and I'll take note of them as we go along with the conversation. Well, let's jump in. How you feeling today, my guy? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. I gotta say, I'm a little jealous, man. I'm liking the hair, man.
Yeah, did you get up a little bit? You're already looking fresh too. Chill. Is that my dental?
Thank you. It's kind of rose, a little rose.
Oh, rose. Okay, my bad.
We good though, man.
Thank you for your time, my guy. I really appreciate it. These conversations are necessary, and our people need to be, exposed to this information way more often. So I'm glad that we're able to keep these going and just continue to add value to our people.
Absolutely.
Awesome, I appreciate it.
I'm ready when you are, man.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, what we're going to be talking about today is feeling our feelings, especially as men. That's not a normal. I don't like to use the word normal. It's not a common thing that we see in the male population, regardless of whether you're black, brown, white, whatever it is. It's usually something that you tend to move away from for whatever paradigms or however we tend to look at the world. But today we're really going to be diving in about why it matters for us to feel our feelings, and the repercussions, the results of what happens when we don't feel our feelings. So with that being said, in your opinion, RJ, why does feeling your feelings mean? What does it even look like?
Sure. Thank you for the question, man. I'm glad we're talking about this topic, because this is obviously like a pretty common one that we end up discussing a lot in therapy. And especially like you said, for men, it's to me, the first thing is it's about creating that space and that openness to even allow ourselves to experience that emotion, right? You've definitely touched on it several times throughout these lives, like I to give you credit. But part of it to me, when we've talked about journaling before, when we talked about creating healthy support systems, having people around you that you feel like you can trust and confide in, all those create that space, right? It creates that environment for us to be able to experience it. So to use something I know you've mentioned before, sometimes we have the highs, sometimes we have the lows. We don't want to only experience the highs, because then otherwise it doesn't have the same level of intensity or of effectiveness, because we're only thinking about how everything's great. We also have to consider when we're having these not so good moments, when we are not feeling the best, when we might feel saddened by something, if we have a life circumstance that occurs, maybe you have like a family member that gets ill, maybe you at risk of losing your job, not because of your own fault, because the economy that we're in right now. There's so many reasons that aren't necessarily within our control that cause us to have these type of negative emotions. And I'm focusing on the negative ones, because those are the ones we tend to avoid. The positive ones, we'll take all that, give me that, I'll drink that up. We're talking about the negative ones, because these are the ones, specifically in therapy, this is what we have to learn to focus on, because we glide past them so quickly. That's part of, like you've talked about it, that's part of the healing, that's a part of the growth. But we have to be willing to sit in them. So to make it very simple, to feel our feelings, number one, is we have to create the space in order for us to be able to do so. So what that could mean is, I'm not going to, just because I feel bad about something, I'm not going to pretend it's not there. I'm not going to gloss over it. I'm going to create that space for me to be open, even if I'm just by myself in my house, in my room, got everything off. And maybe I'm just going to allow myself to sit there and say, you know what? I am saddened by this. This did bother me. Why do I feel this way? That's just like a very, basic step one.
Wow. Yes, like you're speaking facts. I'm literally just taking it in, taking it all in. I love how you mentioned creating that space. That's absolutely crucial.
Mhm.
Because as you will know, as you grow into life, when you don't create that space, that feeling becomes you. You eventually start identifying as that feeling. It becomes bigger than you a lot of the time. So it's important for us to create that space so we can observe it, and that way kind of just like, okay, I like, again, acknowledge it, like RJ said, I am feeling that way. Then from there, like whatever time it takes for us to heal, then you can move on. But I love that you said that, because at the end of the day, like that space is absolutely crucial. Like a lot of us want to like kind of force that healing and force those emotions to come out. And sometimes, like it's that space, whether it is like, even if you're by yourself, sometimes you're with the wrong people that might not allow you to really feel those feelings without judgment and with love. So I appreciate you mentioning that, because that's 100% fact.
Yeah.
I 100% love that. So, but I already kind of like touched on this a little bit. Why do you think it's beneficial though for us to feel our feelings?
You said, why is it beneficial?
Why do you think why is it beneficial?
Oh man, there's a there's a plethora of reasons why. Let me try not to go off on let me try not to go off on a tangent, but to me, like kind of piggybacking on what we were just saying, right? If we allow ourselves to feel, then we can not only move through those negative experiences, but then it'll allow us to also grow, because it requires us to challenge our thinking and to like evolve on certain subjects or certain topics. We have to allow ourselves the space to do that. So if I allow myself to feel and go through that space, whether that, again, this doesn't necessarily mean you immediately jump into therapy with somebody. This is just what you can do on your own. What you can do literally in your own space, in your own room, whatever that may look like. Even if you just have a closet or you have the bathroom for 15 minutes, like, you can do this. Or the shower, right? You can do it in the shower. I don't know if you guys like to introspectively think. I sometimes talk to myself in the shower because it's just, I don't know. It's just, it feels nice to be able to do so, even if you want to cry. Especially if you're a man and you don't want to feel like you're crying. Great way to mask it, but you still get the practice.
Yeah, it's just water going down your face.
Right. It's just water. It's just water that came from my body. That's all it is. so there's no issues there. But yeah, man, it's like the benefits are tremendous. Especially if you talk about not only for internal growth, but you talk about like relationship building. If I'm dating somebody and they say something that I disagree with, right? It's so important to create that environment where I allow myself to feel what I need to feel, because if I don't do that, what happens is what we've touched on before, all that stuff gets pushed down and pushed down and pushed down. And then when she may want to have a conversation with me, I don't have a healthy way to let that out. It's going to come out like a tornado or like a typhoon or giant wave of emotion, because I don't give myself the space to sit in and say, okay, I feel like this about this. I'm gonna make sure I talk about that. And I feel this way about this. I'm gonna make sure I touch on that in a it's somewhat of an order, right? But when I don't do that, it makes it very, very difficult for me to be able to share and engage with her. So that she might get really, really upset with me, which then further reinforces me not sharing. It makes me want to suppress even more. And we have this very, very negative vicious cycle, right? So we don't want to create those environments where we're not going to be open and we're not going to be transparent about how we're feeling. But when we're first getting started, it takes time, right, to practice to get used to that. That's why I brought up the shower. Like, that might sound kind of silly, but people need those spaces. And for men, we know it's very difficult for us to naturally want to engage in that. So this is a way for us to create that outlet and create that space. Because at the end of the day, we want to be able to not only be open about how we're feeling, but again, to experience the highs and the lows as we move through life. Because we all know, you've lived long enough, you probably know, life is not on a straight line, right? It's always going to be the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs as we continue. So we have to kind of bake in room for that. So it's part of our practice of self-care. That's really what feeling the emotions for each of us is about.
I love that. As you're saying that, I'm also like the word judgment is coming to my mind a lot. I feel like we tend to, and not specifically judging ourselves, but really judging feelings as either bad or good. And yes, some can be helpful, some can be unhelpful, but I think it's important for us to remember that they're just feelings, all of them. And when we move away from that judgment, then we don't, okay, I'm only going to feel the good ones. I'm only going to, like, you can just feel them all, however they. So whenever you start feeling the all of that judgment coming in and like all those labels for those feelings, oh, this feeling is good, this feeling is bad. Even the word helpful and unhelpful can be a judgment if not used properly. So
absolutely.
Right. So definitely, I definitely think it's important for us to like, okay, what am I actually feeling? Because it's something that I've learned recently. It's that feelings are very physical. Yes, like you'll feel them in your body most of the time. So it's hard for you to be like, no, but I'm not feeling that. Yes, you will feel it in your body. Like that's just how it is. So that's okay. That's okay. So make sure that you look at your body. How is your body feeling? Are you feeling like, are you feeling contraction? Are you feeling expansion? How are you feeling? Like really pay attention to everything. Right. And try and work on moving away from that judgment, because that's going to make it a lot easier for you to just allow feelings to be. I like one of my favorite quotes is, you are the sky, your feelings are just the clouds. Like they're eventually just going to go away. Observe them. Like you're going to be there regardless of what happens. The clouds are eventually going to move past. So I just love to look at feelings that way. And I think that's I'm a very visual learner, so I think it's a very visual way to look at them, right? So when you realize like, hey, I'm the sky. Yes, it's really cloudy right now. Whoa, it's storms. Like it's stormy today. Like what's going on? But what's up with every storm, typhoon, hurricane? I'm from the Caribbean. I know about hurricanes. They pass. And usually, like, it's almost like a guarantee that there's calm after the storm.
Yeah.
And that comes back to what we were talking about, how, like, life comes, it's up and down. So if you feel like you're down, like you're in a storm, what can you most likely be sure of? That there's ups coming. Like, there's going to be, the sun's going to come out again. Rainbows are going to come out. Like, that's how life works.
You know what's so interesting about that though, Carlos? It's so interesting when you're in the moment, right? I talk about this all the time. Like personally, I've experienced this, and professionally, I see this all the time. Like you're so right. Or you talk about the clouds passing. There's so many different ways to say this, right? You can't see down the road. Like you know that expression, like you can't see the forest through the trees. Like you don't know. I usually ask this question or I make this statement like when I'm working with somebody. Like you're in this moment right now, right? It is the end of August 2022. Imagine where you will be in 3 months from now. Imagine where you might be 6 months from now. Imagine where you might be a year from now. And what's interesting when you ask somebody that question is, there's typically two different ways somebody's going to respond. I could consider them like an optimistic and a pessimistic way of looking at it. The pessimistic way might be, man, that is absolutely terrifying. I don't want to know what happens when I get there. Like, I don't even want to imagine a year from now because I feel like absolute crap right now, right? And the other side is, I'm excited. I don't know what it's going to look like. In each of those scenarios, I don't know. None of us know the future. But I'm excited for what could be. It's hard to naturally transition to this side. It takes time to go from a more pessimistic outlook to a more optimistic one. It takes time to get there, right? But that's the benefit when you give yourself the space to experience these feelings, because then you're not going to be held prisoner by them forever. The only way these feelings never move is if you don't acknowledge them and you don't ever try to process them. You just sit in it day after day, week after week, month after month, and you're like, man, why do I keep feeling this way? Why does this issue keep coming up? This is a perfect example. At the most randomest times. Why did that happen? And I'm like, listen, if we have these things that we've never dealt with for years, What makes you think that it's gone all of a sudden? Why do you think that just because 10 years went by, all of a sudden I'm better now? Everything's fantastic. I'm great. I'm like, sir, ma'am, no, it's still there. That's why we have to deal with it. Because I don't want you to be stuck in that mentality. I want you to help you move over to this more optimistic outlook to life. Because life can feel much grander. The sun comes out, the clouds move, as you said. But I gotta be willing to do that work. So I just wanted to give that example.
I agree, and just to add what you said too. When you're feeling these feelings, like I mentioned this in past conversations, it's gonna hurt. Like if you're just watching us today, like I want you to understand that it will hurt. Because you were experiencing all that pain, suffering, whatever it might be. Again, like you're facing it. But the more that we do it, the more that we journal, we go to therapy, we meditate, whatever it is that you're doing to do that healing, the more that you can start observing and like just, okay, this is the feeling that I'm feeling. And then eventually like it doesn't have to become you. So know that as you dive in and you start like really asking yourself those questions and you start really noticing and being intentional about being aware about your feelings, it will hurt. But that's where the healing happens. I know that RJ in past calls mentioned an amazing like just visual. Like if you have a cut and you have dirt in there, and you just like it's gonna hurt when you're cleaning it out and you're putting some alcohol in there. Might get some stitches. It's gonna hurt, but it's gonna hurt a lot more if you just let it be. If you just let it be and you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna ignore it. It's in the back of my arm, so I'm not gonna look at it. Like,
that's amputation, bro. That's amputation. I gotta take it off now. I gotta take it off. I waited too long. It's done.
Exactly. 100%. 100%. Like, I'm glad you feel me. So yeah, the next question that I have on here is, what are some consequences of not allowing that space to experience your feelings? I know that we touched a little bit on it already, or like.
Yeah.
You mentioned how we can snap our loved ones in relationships and stuff like that. But yeah, what would you say?
No, absolutely, man. Okay, consequences. So this can go left in so many ways, right? Yeah. You think about relationships, right? I usually think about it in context of relationships to people that you have around you, because number one, I'm not well because I don't experience my feelings. So for some cases, I had some clients recently, I had to talk about this. Sometimes I might over rely on somebody to kind of like save me. And that can develop an unhealthy level of codependency where like, I need you to help me deal with me. That's not good. That person's not going to be able to be there always. So we have to make sure that we can take care of ourselves. I would also say that in terms of us being healthy, when I was talking about the outlook that we have on life, right? My outlook on life, in my experience, would be highly, highly pessimistic, cynical, general apathy, meaning I feel like indifferent about a lot of things. That's not living, man. That's not. I usually like to make that distinction. That's like survival and existence versus living. And they're different situations. But if I'm so used to just keeping everything in all the time and I was never given that space to do it. So I'm learning for the first time, like a lot of young men are doing, and a lot of older men too, to be fair. We're learning in real time. What does that look like? How do I do that? I was always taught that was not okay. So I'm trying to get okay with just that idea, let alone practicing it, right? If I don't get over that part, I can effectively sacrifice so many different relationships of the people around me, because nobody's going to want to sit. Just think about it like this. Do you remember, I don't know if you remember this, do you remember there was a commercial for Zoloft years ago? Zoloft is like an antidepressant. And it was, I wish we had if I could pull it up, but it was like the little stick figure. They're walking, their heads down, and there's like a cloud that's following them, and it's raining on them.
I think I've seen it, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, those of you that in the chat, maybe y'all would have seen it. But anyway, so there's a stick figure, man. He's walking, and there's a cloud following him, and it's raining on them the whole time. And the purpose of it, again, Zoloft is an antidepressant. Depressant, obviously, meaning we're sad, we have low energy, we don't, typically move maybe as much as we would like. So they're trying to say, if you take that medication, and then what happens after the person started taking it, The sun came out. The clouds went away. I felt great. Okay, Giselle saw it. Shout out to you, Giselle. So I see the sun came out. Now I feel great. The reason why I'm bringing up that as example is because when you're feeling depressed or you're sad or you're internalizing everything, it's like imagining that cloud is around you all the time, right? And that energy, I'm sure everybody has been around at least one person who has been like that. It's contagious. That negative energy is really, really contagious. You come around and you're just like, ugh. You just suck all the positive energy like out of me. I say that it's a great day. You say the day sucks. I say I'm excited for the future. You say the future is terrible. For every positive thing I try to throw out there, you counter me. Right? Those are some of the risks that we run into when we don't allow ourselves the space to actually feel these things and to address these things and to work on these things. That's why I always talk about relationships, because as humans, we're highly social creatures. Even though those of us that are really, really introverted, which is totally okay. It doesn't mean you don't want to be around anybody. It just means you don't like being around large groups of people. Totally fair. But if I told you having that cloud around you all the time because you're never dealing with your stuff means nobody would want to be around you. I don't think you'd want to sign up for that. I don't think that's what you feel in your heart of hearts is okay with you. But a lot of times we just kind of settle for it because we think that's just the way it's supposed to be. And of course, I'm here to challenge that. That's a huge purpose of why we're talking about it. Christina said to me, well, to be fair, you're a fellow therapist, Christina, so that's not fair to say. But anyway, we need that energy. We need that space, like it's good to have self-time to reflect. But my point is, in the grand scheme, when you really want people around and you can't get them because you've effectively pushed them away, that is unhealthy. And that a large part of that comes from the fact that we don't give ourselves a space to do that work. So I hope that gives sort of like a framework of why it would be beneficial. Not that you have to change everything immediately overnight, but if we don't put in the effort now to start that, those are some of the risks that we're going to play in terms of us as individuals taking good care of ourselves, and then the risk that we may run into with trying to maintain healthy relationships with other people.
Facts.
I know that was a long...
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And honestly, just to like put it into simple words, do the work, and you're helping the world. Like you're literally making the world a better place by doing the work within you. Like you don't have to bring that cloud with you. Like for whenever you go into a crowd, you enjoy social situations better. You like the world is better when you're better. So make sure you take care of yourself. Make sure that you feel those feelings. That's really, at the end of the day, that's our responsibility. That's one of the few things that is really on us. Even if you do go to therapy, your therapist cannot feel your feelings for you. They can give you tools, they can give you information, they can guide you the most appropriate ways to go about it. But at the end of the day, once you go home, it's up to you to make sure that you're taking the time to do the work. Like I called it before, that shadow work, to really work on yourself so that you can give the best version of yourself to the world. And straight up, like I just, I'm really passionate about that. And the way that you described it, I think was beautiful. Like, I think it's perfect. It perfectly describes why as to why it's important for us to do the work to improve the world.
If you think about it, like, we are like a very interconnected society, especially with look at the platform we're on.
Yep.
But at the same time, think about this. I did an interview with this. I'm going to shout out this interview I just did, but you guys won't see it for a little while. But I talked to this guy, this Black man who is creating a social media platform, which is almost the antithesis of what Instagram and TikTok and all these other ones are for. To focus on community building, to focus more on actual intimate connections with people, and not just likes and followers, right? Which kind of builds this weird superiority differential, on these platforms, right? Like, I feel like my life is less than because you're living your best life every single day, and I'm not. So I feel like I'm not, I don't measure up, which can kind of sink me into a depressive episode. Or I could just be sad all the time, right? And I love that concept because, to me, the big reason why we're here, why we're talking about it, is because we want to foster more connection, right? We don't want to feel like isolated and alone. But what's ironic is in the most connected generation that we have ever been in human society, we're also feeling the most disconnected right now, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that a strange paradigm? We have all this technology to be very connected, to see what's going on with other people, to have empathy and feel, right? Again, feeling our feelings. But then at the same time, we have like this great comparison. I don't even know what you want to call it, man, but it seems rooted in a lot of the stuff that people share. And that makes me sad because then again, I deal with the side effects of that. When they come in and they feel less than, they feel like their feelings don't matter. They feel like their life isn't as important. Like it doesn't matter if they're here or not. You know, that's the stuff I worry about. Those are the aspects of social media that I think we can change. Like we need to change, you know, because it's so important, especially we didn't even touch on this part, man, for the young folks. I will make this one last point because this is something we were talking about for a while in that interview. It's for the young people who haven't even formulated their identity, right? They don't even know who they are. Let's go into this for a second. If you indulge me, if you will.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So if I'm a young person, you know, I have an 11-year-old, but let's just say they're like 13, 14. You know, it could be a young man, it could be a young girl. Who cares? Either one of them equally susceptible, equally vulnerable. And what a lot of times, so what are they seeing? Back in the day, not to age myself, but like before a lot of the social media, you were able to engage with the people around you. Oh, okay, Giselle's a 50-year-old, so she understands. You only thought about the people in your immediate environment, right? The people you went to school with, the people that were in your neighborhood, all that kind of stuff, right? Now you're comparing to everybody else, not only in your city, in your state, in your country, in the world. You're looking at all of that. It's a great way to feel less than. It's like, damn, Carlos is living his best. Man, this brother is doing handstands in Arizona, out here hiking, just meeting people. I can't even get out of my house, man. I don't even want to leave my room, you know? And that saddens me because instead of that being encouraging, like, yes, he's out here doing it. I know him. I want to go do something like that too. I'm like, no, I guess I'll just kind of sit here, you know, and that really bothers me. So when this guy was talking about creating this platform, I'm like, man, that sounds great. Like sometimes you need, and this is what we talk about in therapy, you need an alternative viewpoint. This platform this brother's trying to build sounds like it could be an alternative social media platform to give us more connectivity with each other, genuinely. Not we just text, we just follow, that kind of stuff. To stop this comparison complex, whatever this is that we got going on. You know, I don't want that to continue. But for the young folks, going back to that point, they don't know any better. Their worldview is literally getting shaped in real time, as opposed to us. Those of us are a little bit older. I predated all this stuff, so I don't really care. You know, I can take or leave Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and LinkedIn and all. I can take it or leave it because I formulated my self-identity prior to the birth of all this. But for the young generation that came out with this stuff, they have the real challenge because they're dealing in this sort of existential crisis of, I'm just like on the same stage as everybody else, but my life don't look like them. Why are they so happy and I'm not? Why does their life look like this and mine doesn't? And that is a real challenge I think that we're facing. So to go back to the topic, we need to feel our feelings. We need to create space, especially for young folks to be able to do that also for those of us that are parents. But understanding that it is a bit different now because we're in this tech digital age. So it's going to look different than what even we are used to. I very much admit I'm still a novice when it comes to all this. I'm new. I'm very new. But we got to learn so that they don't have to pay the cost as they continue to grow and formulate their self and identity and how they connect with others in these types of spaces online.
Wow, that's so powerful and such a necessary part of life that we need to understand as we continue to evolve as a species. Like as we continue to move towards a more electronic world, like we need to adapt. And if you're a parent specifically, like all we need to do is continue to work to do our best so that we can provide a little more support for kiddos. Like this is so important. A lot of, like you mentioned, a lot of them are just confused about their own identity. They're having a really tough time, and there's a lot of comparison going around. I want to really piggyback on what you said about connection and isolation, because I think those are two things that are massive right now, and especially in the connection era, which is a little bit funny in my opinion. But when it comes to isolation, I'm gonna touch on that first. If you feel like, oh, like, I prefer being alone, like this and that, like, all right, I get that. Like, I also enjoy my own company. But let's keep it real. Isolation is literally one of the worst punishments that we can give to a person. So if you're giving yourself, okay, I need a day, maybe a week when I'm just hanging out by myself, or, feeling my feelings, really connecting with myself. But when you're going months, sometimes even years, when you're literally distancing yourself from everybody else, you're literally deciding to punish yourself. So, and I know nowadays, especially with social media, we all kind of forgot to socialize. And that's okay. But the only way that we can get better at that is by getting out there and practicing.
Yes, sir.
Being uncomfortable for a little bit. Eventually, like, socializing, you're just like, oh yeah, like, it's just another human being who also feels almost every single one of the feelings that I'm feeling. So remember that. Remember that isolation is massive punishment. If you go to a jail, what's the worst type of punishment? Yeah, isolation box or whatever they want to call it. I don't even know. Like seclusion. Yeah.
Solitary confinement.
Solitary confinement. Like literally, it's a massive punishment.
Yeah.
So my challenge to you is to stop punishing yourself, because you deserve better. You deserve love, and you deserve connection. And that connection is really going to help you understand more about yourself and other people, and understand at the end of the day, through connection, that a lot of the time we're way more alike than we think we're different.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So definitely just remember that, because I get it. When I came out of the pandemic and I had to relearn how to socialize, I was like, okay, like, how do I go about this? How do you even initiate a conversation? Practice. Try stuff out, like really just figure out what works for you. Yeah.
Do you want to hang out too? Can we go to the park?
You cool? For real, straight up. I think it's so important. Like we really need to use these tools, like the one we're using right now, to connect and know that yes, this can be a really damaging tool, but again. Like just using this to compare yourself and just beat yourself down all the time. But this can also be a really transformational and empowering tool that allows you to connect to people from all over the world. I was lucky that I grew up in this society where I was in high school, and I have friends in Fiji, I have friends in Europe that I haven't even met yet. Like I haven't even met them, but like I literally just connected with them and we became friends. And I was able to connect across the world with people, with like-minded people, and I realized like, oh, wait, so someone all the way across on another island across the world is also feeling the same things I'm feeling. Oh, interesting. Like that, and then you start realizing, you start putting things together, and you realize, like I said before, we really are more alike than we are different. Like our differences, and again, there are differences, and that's what makes life beautiful. Because like I mentioned before, if we're all alike, it's pretty freaking boring. Like it's all gonna be like just really think of SpongeBob like, hi, how are you? Like it's gonna be just really basic conversations all the time. Like that those little differences like those uniqueness in each and all of us really adds that spice, that touch to life. Like it really makes life a little bit better and more exciting. And like I'm having this conversation with RJ, I don't know what he's gonna say next, and that's amazing. Like that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Like that's what really makes life exciting. And yeah, I don't want to go on a tangent because I really would. But
No. I'm posting a question to the group, but I'm gonna add to what you're saying.
For real.
I really like what you're saying. I touched on this one last time because you were kind of bringing it up, right? In terms of socializing and trying to learn to re-socialize. And I always talk about community. I was bringing it up again when I was talking to the person about the platform, because I think we're all thirsting for it. You know, like if you break down the essence of where we are and why we're struggling, it's because, again, how do you combat isolation? It's not just going out just to physically be outside, right? It's you got to feel like you have people around you that you want to be open with.
As
To
we go,
go
so,
to go to the point you were saying, I don't want to just everything be surface level. Can we go deep? Can we talk about the real? Or we got to always talk about, yeah, man, the football game was dope. Yeah, I bought this different lawnmower to cut my grass or whatever. Like, can we take it a step further and talk about challenges we have within ourselves, challenges we have within parenting, challenges we have in our relationships? Can we talk about the honest stuff? And a lot of us don't have that type of community. I'm still working on building my own, because when you're working on your own, it can be very isolating. That's like the biggest thing I've learned, even like especially during the pandemic, right? So many people have had to deal with that. Is you couldn't go outside, you couldn't talk to people, and you were restricted to only communicating in person, or excuse me, communicating virtually, which is not bad. But to Raguni's point, the isolation is really, really difficult. It's really difficult to learn how to navigate and deal with. So you combat that by intentionally cultivating and creating community. Well, how do you do that? You might start with just connecting with like-minded people, especially using these tools, right? These platforms are tools. They're not our worldview, they are a tool. Why am I making that point? Because I use this platform as a tool to meet the brother I'm talking to right now. I didn't know him prior to this, but this helped. And now look at what we're doing. And now we're trying to foster another sense of community for men, particularly men of color who already may struggle in these areas. But I'm trying to practice what I'm talking about, because I need it too. We all do. Nobody wants to be by themselves 24/7. You don't want, think of it like this is the scenario.
mm,
If when you want to have somebody around, but you have nobody to call, that's isolation. Because there's a difference when you have a choice, right? If you're like, no, this person hit me up, they wanted to chill. This person wanted to hit me up, they want to do something. But I was like, no, I'm just going to take a self-care day, right? That's different. I'm talking about, no. Carlos walks out of the house, he's like, man, I want to get lunch with somebody. Scrolling through the phone, nobody's answering. It's like, yo, this is lonely. You know, a lot of people, they're dealing with that. They're dealing with that. Like, you can't, to Christina's point, like, you need people there in different ways so that you can engage them when you need them. I want to talk to this person about what I got going on maybe at work. I want to talk to my family about just sharing some of my experiences. Carlos is my activity buddy. He wants to go hike up and down the mountains today. So like, bet, let's go do that. Or go do cartwheels in the park. I don't know. You have different people you might engage with for different things. But the purpose is we have to create that space though, to have that community. But going back to our topic though, if I get a really good community that I can be real with and honest with and vulnerable with, what else do you think I can do? I can feel my feelings with them, in front of them, share with them, connect with them. I can do all that because I'm not worried about, is he going to judge me? Is he laughing at me? Does he invalidate me? Does he make me feel guilty about feeling anything? Right? No, he's my boy, because we created and cultivated that community and that relationship over this period of time. And I need that in my life. And I think all of us really are searching for that in different ways. So I just want to put that out there. Like, I think for a lot of us, that might be like the root of why we find that we get isolated. But part of it is we have to do a lot of our own internal work and feel how we're feeling so that it's easier for us to extend our hand out and say, hey, I want to get to know you. Hey, I want us to engage in activities. Hey, I want to have these lived experiences that I can share with you. But it all does start with me. I got to do my own internal work in order to be willing to even take that risk, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And taking that risk, that's what true courage looks like. I want us to remember that courage is not the lack of fear. It's doing things regardless of fear, because it might feel scary, especially if you never opened up before, especially if you actually never reached out to someone. You're like, hey, help. Hey, can I tell you about how I'm been feeling? Like, that can be really scary. That can even be painful in and of itself. But courage, and know that we all have that courage within us, and we can step through that it's really doing things when we're scared and just doing it anyway. Because after you do step through that fear, after you do ask for that help, I know that Christina mentioned it before, you feel so much better. Like you feel
Yes,
so
you do.
good. Like almost like I
You
almost right
do.
away you're like, oh wow, I really did that. That wasn't really that hard. And then like you can really start opening up. Like and I love the phrase opening up because you really truly feel open. Like you don't feel contracted anymore. You feel
Yeah.
like the world is more open. You start seeing more opportunities around you. You start seeing more
There you
beauty
go.
around you.
Hmm.
So I challenge you again, another challenge because I love challenges. Step through that fear. Step through that fear. Like straight up, step through that fear and like really embrace every one of your feelings. And you'll realize that the more that you share with people who care about you, who are going to be open, people you're connected with,
Right.
um, none of your feelings are weird or crazy or whatever. They're usually the norm. The thing is, in the society that we live in, most people don't really talk about that. And
No.
regardless of the culture, like most people don't talk about this stuff. So know that when you start bringing it up, most of the time, what I've gotten personally is like, "Oh yeah, I felt that before." I'm like, "What? Really?" Okay. I'm like, you know, okay.
Thanks.
Wait a second. And then
Facts.
you can start feeling like a human because we're all human. We all like most emotions like are human because we all experience almost the same umbrella of emotions. Like
Hmm.
not at the same times or whatever, but we throughout life we tend to experience a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
And through connection, through opening up, through being brave and courageous to step into our light, that's how we can really unlock all of the beauty that's within us, and again move away from identifying from our emotions because we don't have to. Understand that emotions are the clouds and you are the sky. At the end of the day, you are the sky. It's gonna pass. Better days are coming. And if you're up, sorry to give you some bad news, but you're gonna have to experience some struggles in the future. So be prepared for that. Like be even excited for that. You're like, okay, cool. Like I know that like eventually, if I'm just like the stock market, if you're just going up, up and up and up, you're eventually gonna experience a crash, and that's okay. And it doesn't even have to be a crash. You know, just a low moment in your life.
Yeah.
Maybe something happens to your car or like whatever. Like you'll experience a low moment, and that's a time for us to practice where we're learning and really just embrace every situation, embrace every emotion, and that way feel life to the fullest. Because when you're at those low moments, embrace them, remember them, because when you're in the top, you're like, wow, I remember when I wasn't feeling this good. I
Yeah.
remember, and like I remember when I was really down, like my car broke down, like my family, like I broke up, like whatever it might have been. And look how I'm feeling now. You appreciate it more. So appreciate the low moments just as much as you appreciate the highs. Again, that's going back to that judgment. Do not judge situations as negative or positive. Emotions are negative or positive. Yeah,
Yeah.
again, like just they are. Just accept what is, or do something about it if you can. Of course, like we have those two options: accept what is or do something about it. But if we can't do something about it, which usually is the case for our emotions that we're feeling, which are automatic responses to the environment or situation,
Yeah.
just let it be. Allow those clouds to pass and continue to live your best life.
No, absolutely, man. It's funny too when you said that. I want to touch on something else, but I want to say this to the last point you're mentioning. I always talk about something. There's this one model of therapy some people do called dialectical behavior therapy, and there's this one concept that's always very hard to understand in terms of accepting it. It's very clear, but it's hard to practice. It's called radical acceptance. To your point of what you were just saying, meaning some things that I may experience in life I can't do anything about. Now, if you think of it in context of like other people, right? Like I can't change the way that you feel. I can't change the way that you think. I have to learn to accept you as you are. If you're willing to make some changes and I can be a part of those changes, great. But I can't expect you to change because it is your decision if you want to or not. So I must radically accept that. Why? Because it helps me to have peace. I'm not going to have all this resistance towards you if I want to keep you in my life. I'm not going to have all this resistance and tension and hostility towards you all the time because I'm like, damn, I need you to be like this. Can you just stop doing that? Because it's not helpful. But they're at a different point in life. they may not be at the same point that we are to make some of these adjustments, to make some of these connections, right? That's going on. I have to accept that. So it's a simple concept, but it's very, very hard to practice because you have to do that with everybody. Everybody, you have to do that to try to give that non-judgmental approach, the same way you would do with your feelings. Because if you judge the feeling, then you're kind of saying, I'm not allowed to have that feeling. And then I'm just going to internalize it and push it down. That's not healthy. I got to feel it. And to your other point, this is the other point I wanted to go back to that you said, that when I have that community and I open up and I share, that's beautiful. Because then you realize, to Giselle's point earlier, saying that she feels like she's an alien walking by herself all the time. We're not. We're not. So many of us have the same feelings and similar experiences, not the same, but similar experiences, but we don't know because, like you said, we don't talk about it. But if you get to do the work that I do, and I get to talk to these people, I'm like, listen, and this might seem like, I swear, I'm not trying to make this seem like it's super ideal, because it's not. In the same day, I can have 4 different people that I work with, and they could have each made the same point. They don't even know each other. This person's talking about feeling alone, and this person said it another way that they're alone, and this person said they're also feeling alone. In a row, they don't know that because they're not me, but I do. I'm like, listen, for everybody that's out there that doesn't, you might not have that privilege, and it is a privilege, to talk to different people who are walking these different stages of life. We are so much more alike than different, and much more alike than you might be thinking, even in your lowest of points. To Carlos's point, even when the cars broke down, I remember when I used to be calculating how much the bill was going to be at the grocery store when you put everything on that belt, and you're like, damn, I hope I can pay for it. I remember those days like they were yesterday. I never want to forget them because I've come so far from those times. But let me also empathize with other people who may be at a similar point. Let me also, if somebody else shares something else that they got going on, maybe that would encourage me to also share a bit about what my challenges are. And then we realize, hey, we're building some type of community because we understand each other somewhat, right? Even if we're at different ages, different ethnic backgrounds, we come from different countries, whatever. There's a lot of that's in common, but we just kind of gloss over it thinking we're so different, or because we don't say it in the same way to each other. We're like, oh no, that's something different. I'm like, no, man, we're a lot more similar than you may be thinking. So the point is, the more I allow myself to feel those feelings, then the more like I can communicate with other people who may also validate me and affirm how I feel, and I can validate and affirm them, which feels great. Now I'm building up that sense of community that I talk to them about other stuff. And maybe we do activities that are fun and feel fulfilling in life. Wouldn't that be nice if we could all have that, some version of that in our life?
It would be so nice. I'm gonna just jump to the conclusion. Yes, it would be so nice. It would be amazing.
Thank you. I'm glad you were listening. Thank you.
100%. And that's the goal here. We want to build that community. We want to utilize these tools so we can build stronger communities. So we can, rather than moving away, because even when you are feeling alone, even in that feeling of feeling alone, you're not alone, because we're all felt it. We all been there. Like it's a human thing. Like no one experiences the same things that you experience. No one has the same body that you have. So I can assure you that every single person on this planet has felt alone. Has felt like I'm the only one. Yes, and even in that, you're not alone, because we all felt it. Like,
and there's almost 8 billion people, by the way, to feel alone.
8 billion. That's what I'm saying. So like, just remember that you're never ever alone in any of your emotions. And a lot of the time, we put ourselves in those positions. We put ourselves in situations that don't really allow us to understand our similarities. So it can be challenging when you first start. I speaking from experience from a lot of people that I work with, it can be challenging at first, but it does get easier. It does get easier because you start realizing, hey, this is just my journey. I love it. I embrace it, and I'm proud of it, regardless of how it was. Without judgment, I just embrace my journey. And I am exactly where I need to be. And most importantly, if you take anything from this call, is that you belong. Like, we're all human. This is our planet. You belong. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. So I think I do want to keep it there. I think this was a really informational conversation. I think it was absolutely necessary. I'm going to be sending it to a bunch of my friends to make sure like they take a look. Because this is just really important stuff. I noticed a lot of the names popping up. It was mostly women, because when you see "Feeling Your Feelings" on the title, man, I like.
Oh yeah, come on. We know it's going to be challenged. I will say, for those that are watching now and those that watch it later, I put some of these questions in there. I hope that whenever you come back and you rewatch it, answer those questions. Not necessarily, you don't have to post them if you don't want to, but maybe if you come back and you jump on another call, answer them for yourself. Because I try to put some things in there to make you really think. If you want to build a community, what causes you to be resistant, right? All these different things. I want you to take the effort, take the time, give yourself at least 5 minutes. It doesn't take you that long. Answer those questions, even if you never share them with anybody else. But it's just a good part about starting that journey and starting that process. And shout out to all the women who are in here. Hopefully they push their men to, or men that they know, to check this kind of stuff out. Because, hey, we know if it's men, it's going to take a while and it's a lot of practice. Yeah. But we all got to start somewhere.
Definitely. I 100% agree. Thank you for everyone that jumped on here and shared. Just to leave you with a practical tool that you can use to feel your feelings, especially the ones that might be hurting you or something that you might be stuffing down, or even whether you're identifying yourself that you don't believe will serve you. So grab 2 pieces of paper. I'm a very practical person. I love doing things. So grab 2 pieces of paper. On one at the top right, basically empowering beliefs, and then on the other one, just write down self-limiting beliefs. And give yourself 5 minutes for each. Just give yourself 5 minutes and just write down. No one's watching you, because you're not sharing this with anyone. Just go down and just write it down, and really just be open, as if you're by yourself, because you are by yourself. And I even recommend not worrying about showing out to anybody. Just do it for yourself. Write down self-limiting beliefs, and you'll start realizing the story that you're telling yourself. The things that you're saying, oh, I'm this, I don't deserve this, whatever, I am alone, all the stuff that are not really empowering you. If you don't know what's an empowering or self-limiting belief, feel it in your body. If it feels contracting, then it's probably self-limiting. If it feels opening, if it feels expansive, it's the word that I like to use, then it's probably an empowering belief. So write that down, and then my favorite part after that is burn down the self-limiting beliefs. You can keep the empowering beliefs, but literally grab a lighter and go outside or whatever. Grab a bowl in your living room and literally just burn it down and watch them burn. And from those ashes, allow a phoenix to rise and become the person that you want to become. And know that you don't have to identify with those self-limiting beliefs, and know that you are whatever you choose to be and whatever you feel you are. So I figured I should share that with you, because I do this about every 3 months or so. I try to do that multiple times a year, and it's such an empowering thing to do. So yes. I definitely recommend it. And that way also, a lot of us don't even have a list of empowering beliefs. So you'll end up with a list of empowering beliefs. You can hang that in your office, keeping it in your bathroom, wherever you can see it all the time. Then you can start really living an empowering life. You can start living a really expansive and joy-filled life. Because I don't even want to stay happy, because happy is an emotion. You're again happy and sad is an emotion. It's just like a cloud. It's eventually going to pass. But when you live a joyful life, a life that you embrace regardless of what happens, regardless of the situation in your life, that's when we can start really living fully.
Beautifully said, man. And I love that type of exercise. I'm not going to go off on a tangent on that, but there's other ways to apply that, I would say. In that kind of burning exercise, there's a lot of different ways to apply that when you're trying to, number one, trying to externalize how you're feeling, but like you said, to effectively eliminate them. there's multiple applications. Maybe we'll get into that in a future one. But good. I like that you planted that seed, though.
I got you. Definitely get on that. I'll definitely get on that. Thank you
Yeah,
so
no,
much for taking the time to like really pour into our community, RJ. I really appreciate it. I want to thank everybody, every single person that was engaged and involved in our conversation, and was really willing to just listen and learn and communicate and share, because that's what our community is all about. This is why we're doing this. So thank you
yeah.
so much to every single person that jumped on here. Thank you to all the people that stayed throughout. And if you're watching the recording from this, thank you for loving yourself in this way, so that you can learn more about like yourself, learn more about skills that you can use to really let go of a lot of the stuff that might be holding you back. So,
Yes,
and if you have any
absolutely.
questions, if you have any topics that you want us to hit on, definitely drop them in the comments, and we'll definitely add us to that list. And we have a lot more episodes to come. We have a lot more conversations to be had, because this is a continuing situation, and this is something that we need to work on as a society. So we'll definitely keep these going. So definitely, if you have any questions, any topics that you think we should hit on, if you listen to anything here that you didn't understand and you want a little more detail on, definitely drop it in the comments. You can message me or IJ. We'll definitely try our best to answer your questions to the best of our abilities. But overall, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. It's really all love. Make sure you follow my guy IJ on Inspire Well Solutions, and on Instagram. And definitely love yourself. Feel those feelings, and yeah, live your best life.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I hope everybody got something from that, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you guys next time.
For sure. Thank you so much, my guy. Thank you so much.
Peace.